All right, so we're diving deep today into Egypt's economic landscape.
Yep, using the TEDx and Pix 5-minute Egypt episode as our guide.
Exactly, going way beyond just the headlines, give everyone a much clearer picture of what's actually going on.
The so what, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what does it all mean for you?
Exactly.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, they started off talking about kind of setting the global stage, right?
Yeah.
Trump's trade war. Remember those steel and aluminum tariffs?
Oh, yeah. Big shakeup. Even for U.S. allies.
Definitely. And Egypt imports a lot of steel, right, for construction and all sorts of things.
Thinking about all those big projects, suddenly those imports cost way more.
And that just trickles down, right? Adds to the inflation problem.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
Yeah, no kidding. They also mentioned U.S. inflation hitting 3%.
Yeah. Investors get spooked.
Totally. Running to safe haven assets.
Like gold, right.
Like gold, exactly.
Which is why the price jumped. People see it as stable when everything else is uncertain.
Makes sense. Now, what about the Fed, though? Holding back on those rate cuts, TEDx and Pix made a big deal about that.
Yeah, it's a strong signal. Shows their priority is fighting inflation.
More than worries about slower growth.
Seems like it. And that has ripple effects all over, even in Egypt.
Especially for economies sensitive to U.S. monetary policy.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got global markets freaking out a bit, but what about Egypt specifically?
Well, inflation is still a big problem, though it has cooled down a bit.
Down to 24%, right?
Yeah, but you've got to remember those rising commodity prices we talked about.
Right, because that hits food prices directly.
Chain reaction. Global events. Local consequences.
And you feel it every time you go to the store.
5% more for meat, 10% for fruit. It all adds up fast.
No kidding. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom, right? I mean, what about that Ali Stadium upgrade? That's pretty exciting.
That's a huge project. New stadium, sport hospital. They're even adding a university and a museum.
Wow, ambitious.
Definitely. And it's all financed by Beltone Leasing.
Shows real confidence in Egypt's future, right? I mean, a project that big.
Investors are putting their money where their mouth is. They see long-term potential.
Definitely a good sign. And speaking of confidence, what about those companies TEDx and Pix mentioned? Doing incredibly well?
Like Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, they've practically doubled their capital.
And Crédit Agricole Egypt, strong profits there too, right?
Yeah, translating into good dividends for investors, which is a big draw in a market looking for stability.
Makes sense. And then there's Fowry, the digital payment platform, expanding like crazy. Investment funds, Saudi Arabia, the UAE.
Ambitious for sure. But it does show how much the digital economy is growing in the region.
And Fowry wants to be a leader. Okay, so company are doing well, big projects in the works, but what about the stock market? TEDx and Pix mentioned that was a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, the EGX 30, the main index, kind of struggling to break through.
While the EGX 70, tracking smaller companies, hit an all-time high.
Before dipping a bit, yeah.
So what's going on there? Two different stories.
Well, the EGX 30 might be reflecting those bigger economic concerns we've been talking about, right? Inflation, global uncertainty.
Makes sense. But the smaller companies, maybe they're more agile, able to adapt faster.
Could be. It's definitely a sector to watch.
Definitely. And of course, we can't forget about gold, hitting record highs globally, and that's affecting Egypt too.
Safe haven, remember. Global uncertainty pushes investors towards gold.
And that drives up demand everywhere, including in Egypt. Plus, the central bank's interest rate decisions have an impact too, right?
Absolutely. When rates are low, gold becomes more attractive. It doesn't offer any yield, but it's seen as a safe store of value.
Right, so we've got a lot going on. Egypt's economy is facing some headwinds, no doubt. But there are bright spots too.
Exactly. Growth in certain sectors, exciting projects, and potential opportunities.
It's complex. A lot to think about.
App?
And that's what we want you to do. Think about it. They've just explored this snapshot of Egypt's economy based on what TEDx and Pix highlighted. But what other factors are at play? Where do you think things are headed?
Do your own research, draw your own conclusions.
Exactly. That's the fun part.
That's the deep dive.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you then, 1716.